Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show, we talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about The Silent Sea, Episode 4. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So finally, in this episode, we kind of get a lot of concrete answers about a lot of questions that I've posed, as well as characters in the show have posed. So, we kind of find out in totality what is Captain Han's motivation, and it is in fact his daughter. I figured as much, like him being so adamant about like, who cares about anything else? Let's complete the mission, because he has so much riding on this mission, because his daughter is, because obviously when he's walking up, the guy's like, hey, we need to abolish the classification system. And he keeps walking because that classification system, like, obviously it's like the way things are, there's no fighting that. That's just the way it is. That's why I'm curious, because they kind of talk about it that basically different, like, countries found a way to deal with it. I was wondering whether or not this was specifically like a worldwide issue of like the classification, but now I'm kind of thinking it might be a Korea thing specifically, because something I didn't know was a big, I think class system kind of exists there. Like, you know, you have your 1%ers and you have your 99%. That's a big thing here in the US. It wasn't until Squid Games that, you know, I've heard people who are Korean who have talked about like, yeah, that's a big thing in Korea. You know, just like, right, the rich and powerful and those who aren't. Like, it's just that I think that stagnation between like wealth and like rich and poor, and just like even probably being middle class isn't the easiest thing living wise. So I think this is just another commentary on that of like, right, if you're rich and powerful, you are going to be able to get, once again, that's applicable to any place, because the rich and powerful are able to kind of get whatever they want in a lot of countries, but I think it's a really prominent and continuing issue specifically in Korea. So I think that's why I'm thinking this classification thing might just be a Korea thing. I was wondering whether or not it was. I don't know if they really clarified whether it was or not. But it would be better if everyone would get stuff fairly. But in his position, it's like, no, I need things to kind of be tipped more in the... Well, it'd benefit him because he'd be able to help out his daughter a lot more if he didn't have to worry about the classification. But the benefits of the classification means that I don't get the same fair amounts as anyone else. I would get more, because that's what this mission is about. Once again, everyone who completes this mission gets a higher classification, and he needs it because his daughter's situation is bad. Her legs, it looks like one leg is in worse condition than the other, but the doctor was saying like if she doesn't get like, you know, a good amount of water soon enough, like she will eventually lose both her legs. And they talked, because Gisu had brought it up, a lot of children that are born after the drought die after like 5 years. So she might have, because it definitely seems like the drought's been going on for a long time. I don't think they specify. I think they're keeping it vague of like when it happened. But maybe they brought up specific. I don't think they specified in like the first episode like the specific time frame and stuff like that, of like how long Earth's been, like when exactly was the Great Drought and how long the world's been in this state. Maybe they did, and I'm just not remembering. But like I said, I figured he wasn't a bad guy. I just figured he was sticking his guns to like, no, I need to complete this mission no matter what, because my daughter's waiting for me, and saving her is what's most important to me, and I can only do it if I complete this mission and get back. That's why he was like, oh, it's supposed to be a 24-hour mission, and that's why he's just been pushing every time. I don't care how these people died. I got to get back to before my daughter dies. That's what's most important. So finds himself in a complicated situation, though, obviously picking up with him supposed to be going down because the elevator's messed up, and so he's going down, but then all of a sudden the elevator comes up, and even later on the conversation is like, why did, like, out of any elevator to activate, why that one? I'm like, it just, because it's like, right, when they tried to use the elevator before, it didn't work. So luckily he was able to get out of the way in time, but the problem is just when he does that, though, the elevator latches onto his cable. Luckily, he was able to disconnect before it yanked him up, but he's kind of stuck there out of the rope, so they send it down, but then the elevator comes circling back down, so it's like, right, throw me down the rest of the rope. He latches it onto something, and he kind of free falls for a bit. Very, about to make another nerdy reference, very Gwen Stacy-like of you. just like moving at those speeds and stuff like that. I'm not the science person. I don't know how that works space-wise, especially on the moon, because the moon does have gravity, but its gravity is different than Earth's. Because I'm about to say, like, if that was an Earth situation, your spine would have probably been broken with just like that sudden impact. Once again, a very Gwen Stacy thing of like, you only have that one light, and all of a sudden, and then especially all the, like, but I think once again, I am an ignoramus, but I do believe, like, the moon's gravity is different from Earth. So, once again, I'm not the science person. I'm an idiot. So, but, I think that's the only reason why you normally would be able to do something like that and bounce around like that. I'm like, you are jacked up. Plus, it broke his thing that, like, regulates, like, the oxygen for him. So, but before he's like, no, I'm not about to go back up. I got to do this. Like, if I can get back in touch and we can get this all sorted out, because the only way he's going to get back home is if they contact Earth, because they won't be able to do that with comms being down as they are. So it's not, we can't even tell, like, yeah, maybe they're going to send people to come get us, but they're probably not going to know exactly, like, where we, like, to actually really come look for us. So we got to get in contact and find out what's happening, because they're praying like, oh, maybe they are sending a rescue ship, hopefully, but you don't know for sure. So, but luckily he came, like, changed out the panel and ended up passing out afterwards. I was like, that's not good. But luckily, Chief Gong was able to get to him beforehand. So, at the same time this is all going down, we have Jian still working with Dr. Hong to figure out this water situation, because it's like, right, now they're entering the territory like, well, this seems like a virus, and they run it against every virus that they know, and it's like, nothing's coming up. It's just like, doesn't make any sense. It's like, whatever this is, it grows in the body, but once it's out of the body, it stops, which is like, so it's feeding on basically a living organism. Because I thought what's interesting, because I'd never heard this terminology before, was it, I think Dr. Hong called it, I think it was secondary drowning, and even the dude that's with him was like, what's that? Like, there's different forms of drowning. Basically, it's when water gets in your lungs and you basically drown. It could take up to an hour, maybe even like a full day or something before, like, the symptoms like really show themselves before you actually die from it. But it's like, no, there's no way with that amount of water that was in So-chan's body, there's no way that was just in his lungs. So that's not applicable in this case. So, but other than that, they do notice that there is another signal, and I'm like, what's that signal to? And it's in storage 3, so they go there thinking it might be the intruder and stuff like that, but lo and behold, it leads them to Gisu, because it turns out the device he had was a device he was sending secret messages back and forth to someone else, and so now they know, like, oh, Gisu was working with someone else, and it's like, right, like, own dude is like, yeah, I knew I didn't like that guy from the moment we met him. So now it becomes a question like, right, we can use this device to at least try and get in contact with Director Choi. And so they are. Luckily, all systems are back online and they're able to. And so Han has a conversation with her. It's like, oh, 3 people are dead, huh? Oh, and one of them might have been a spy. Oh, that, it's like, right. It's like, but even he's like, yeah, but you're the one that co-signed the last minute replacement. She was like, well, there's going to be an investigation. So whatever they find, it's going to come back to me, and basically I'll let you know what's what. But for him, he also throws out like, yeah, but Dr. Song also has a theory that there's a survivor. It's like, oh, survivor. He's like, I think that's interesting. You were shocked by the fact is finding out there was a spy, but then you were very indifferent the moment you found out there was a survivor. It's like, oh, just, she's like, oh, so much is getting thrown my way, but also it's just like, yeah, I think you're starting to believe her, like, crazy theory, because it's like, right, you bringing that back, because at first it's like, are we capturing that intruder? Does that matter more than getting, it's like, no. Getting that sample, you know how valuable it is and what this means in the grand scheme of things. This, not only will it save your daughter, it will save so many lives. And so, because the whole thing, I love that home dude, I want to say it was, like I said, E1 being like, yo, I hope when it's all said and done, we're getting the hell out of here. Because, like, everything on this whole situation has been fucked since we got here. I hope that's us getting, like, on a rescue ship and getting the hell out of here. Because Han was like, right, like, getting everyone home is the most important thing. Like, he didn't come here with the intention like, oh, people need to be sacrificed. It's like, no, he's not for that. The whole point was to get everyone back home. It's like, because every death weighs on him because he's the captain. Every death, it's like, oh, my fault. Like, so when Huang died, it hit him so hard because it's like, right, I'm supposed to be getting everybody home, but I couldn't. So he feels like the director's holding stuff back. She's like, I wouldn't. Like, why would I do that considering how important this is? I wouldn't hold stuff back. But it's like, you are, in fact. We now know because of the episode. But once again, lady, you've been suspicious since day one of just like how quickly you like shift the conversation, because he's saying like, oh, like, we found no radiation here and there's a whole bunch of dead people. She's like, well, I'm just going by what I was informed that, so if there's something going on otherwise, I wouldn't know about it. It's like, you're full of crap. But because especially at the same time, Jian tests her theory about the water, so she adds her own drop of blood to the water, and it multiplies. And it multiplies again and again and again to the point they had to freeze it, but luckily it stopped multiplying because, blood can only stay active, like, all the cells and stuff in the blood will only be active for a limited amount of time outside of the body. And so it died because the blood stopped being active. So once again, once it's outside of a living organism, the water stops. Because they had described that basically some of its properties seem like distilled water, but then there's also like the atomic mass was that of like heavy water. It was like, it doesn't make any sense. And even Dr. Song was looking at it, not Dr. Song, Dr. Hong was looking at it like, she's like, I have not seen water this clear in however long, because that's also the thing too, like the quality of water like varies depending on where you live at in this world, just because it's like, there's already a drought on water, and so you get water wherever you can, but now this solidifies like, okay, how the water works, and like it is like a virus. And obviously Han came back to those, being like, right, we have to do this. If you find the intruder first, we keep them alive, and then we try to find the samples. If we find the samples first, kill the intruder. You only need the intruder alive if we need to find the samples afterwards. But Jian comes in and confronts him, which, yes, he knows about all of this. Because it actually turns out the person who discovered this water, this lunar water, as he was kind of informed before he left, was Jian's sister. Now, the problem is that he was, like I said, I figured as much. He knew 70% of what was going on, not the full 100. Because even Gisu didn't even know, because even he was like, water? Like, he knew he was supposed to get some cells, but that was about it. Because it turns out every country has been trying to find, like, other means of finding water. Every other country except for Korea abandoned the moon because they found, in particular, Jian's sister found lunar water. And so they thought, like, man, if we're keeping this hush-hush, we're not letting anyone know. And even Captain Han tried to present that of why he didn't say anything till now. It's like, if that information leaked, it'd be a problem. But it's like, if Korea can find because every country's trying to find their own way of dealing with this whole situation, their own development in trying to find a way past this drought. And if Korea can like corner their market on this lunar water, and it's like, oh, we could use this to our advantage, like it could be a boom for their economy, but also like the companies in particular that discovered it, they get a huge slice of that pie. Also, we're like, hey, we'll be seen as the ones who save the world, but also it puts Korea in a lot of position of power to be like, you want a slice of this pie, you're gonna have to cut us off like a piece of it if you want shares in like what we got. So that's the thing of like, now that actually circles back to why they didn't tell anyone the truth about what they were really up to, because they didn't want to take the chance anyone else came to the moon trying to jack this from them. Once again, Captain Han saying like he knew enough about it but didn't know about the other aspect to what Song and Han had Dr. Hong and Jian had discovered, and that was, hey, this thing multiplies inside of organisms. That's what kills Shotan. And then, like, you have Chief Gong, his brother, being like, wait, what? It's like, yeah, this is what killed him. The fact is that it got inside him. He got infected, and it basically drowned him. But now that also adds validity to why this water is so important. It multiplies. So, yes, it has the potential to save the world. But the problem is no one can control it. Like, if you can't rein this in and you bring this back to Earth, you're just going to create like a epidemic and it's going to kill a lot of people. So it's like, yeah, it's a beneficial tool, but it could end up killing all of us. I mean, it literally killed everyone at this station. So what's that going to look like going back to Earth? Once again, why I believe the intruder is a survivor, like Gian says, and I believe it's her sister. Because even she said, yes, my sister was the one who discovered it. She believed that this was something good because we get a younger, like, we gotten a piece of this memory, like, earlier, but now we're getting the full scene of it. And she's like, yeah, this whole, like, what they're sitting in front of used to be a sea, and now it's completely barren. Because, you know, we learned a little bit more about, like, right, the reason why the moon got its name, the Silent Sea, is because Galileo thought it was a sea until they got there and realized, it wasn't until later that we found out when we actually got to the moon, oh, there's no water here. And now Earth is reflecting that. And it's like, she talked about, like, right, I want to, like, restore water to this planet. And, like, I'm going to make this place that we're sitting in front of a sea again. Because want to bring life back to this planet through restoring its water, but also, like, restoring the people who need to survive on said water. But then now you're finding yourself in that complicated thing of, like, yeah, like, whoever has control of this water, it makes a fortune. And also, we're saving the world, but also it's uncontrollable. We don't even know how the infection situation works. It's like, because even one of them's like, are we okay? And Dr. Hong is like, I actually don't know. So it's like, what do you do in that situation? And obviously the information dropped about Jian's sister, and it's like, oh, why wouldn't she say anything about that? Like, knowing that, like, why would she take this mission? And then Chief Gong, like, brings up, like, right, like, the weight that must carry on you, not knowing, no one really giving you answers to what happened. And it must be infuriating living life like that, almost feeling like when you can't get those simple answers, like, the fact is it makes everything else seem like meaningless almost. And so he's almost saying, like, so he can understand it because he's like, right, my brother would understand that as well. So it's like, having lost a sibling now, it's like, he's like, I understand that more so than anything, wanting to get answers, wanting to try and make sense of why this happened, especially when no one else will give you answers. So, but he's like, right, regardless of all of that, I won't let it, like, my personal feelings about all this, my circumstances stop me from completing this mission. And I even like that Gian was like, at the end of the day, I don't blame you. You were just doing your mission. You didn't know the truth about it. But the fact is, they're hiding stuff from us. And luckily, Director Cho gave Captain Han access to level 1 access codes. So it's like, right, there's information here. There's a storage device. Because it's like, yeah, why'd you even come on this mission? Because he was like, I knew your sister was a part of this, so I was reluctant for you to be a part of this. But it's like, why'd you even choose? It's like, because my sister sent me a message to come here, you know? And she said, like, oh, find Luna. And it's like, right, she found the storage, the data storage. And he was like, how'd you find it? She's like, by luck. I don't think so. I think whoever it was, like, I think, which I, once again, still believe it to be your sister, pointed you in the right direction. Because she kind of had this feeling like there's someone watching me. And I think that was the point. So with his access code, they're able to get in there. But he rips off both of their cameras because, like, right, we're not going to let what gets recorded here. He's like, I don't trust you yet. So it's not just you going in there. I'm going to go in there too. So, because for her, it's like, he's like, what are you looking for? She's like, answers to all of this, understanding, like, what my sister died for, what this is all about. Why I understand why Korea went to the trouble, the government went to the trouble of covering up what they found, but what exactly is it they found? And I think that is interesting because in previous episodes I had theorized, like, oh, was it an organism that they found on this planet, which it does seem like it is, because I was wondering if it was something they engineered. So whatever it is, it seems like this is its natural state to be in, this multiplying and stuff like that. It seems like it's its natural state, not unless they have secretly messed with it a little bit. But as they're looking through the data storage, they see some plants growing up, and they open up a hatch, and it's a whole bunch of plants growing. And so they're like, right, those things are feeding off of something. And that's also the thing, if they're tapped into the water, how are they alive? I guess maybe because they're, well, a human with all that much water would eventually die, but I guess the plant life is just constantly feeding. Like, but the thing is, if you water a plant too much, it'll die. So maybe there's different circumstances. Like, maybe that was a little bit. Maybe those plants represent someone trying to control the multiplication process and then trying to stop it. So maybe that's what that's supposed to be indicative of, or just maybe just the different responses it has in a human body versus a plant. we'll have to wait to see next episode where this whole plant situation, what's all the way down that hatch, like what are they going to find? Once again, our intruder situation. Now that Captain Han is asking so many questions. Granted, Director Cho doesn't know, because all that came up after, all of Jeon's discoveries and stuff became public knowledge to the group after he had already talked to the director, so who knows what. Like, so they're probably suspicious because, like, oh, he knows something's up, but now they don't know that he now knows most of everything they kept hidden, so we'll ultimately have to wait and see where the next episode takes us with all of this. But really, that's all I'm going to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.